It's predictions time here on the Internet Advisor. Every year we give out our yearly predictions on technology, and we're definitely not going to leave out 2021 because 2020 is already come and gone. In addition to that, we'll also be talking about Amazon starting up their own podcasting service. Ed has some more information on some new Windows innovations coming out this year. And of course, we'll have Mike Brennan with MI Tech News. Please stand by for the Internet Advisor. Happy New Year. Welcome to the Internet Advisor. We're starting off our new year with a new year, which always comes in handy. And 2020 is behind us. Hopefully 2021 is going to be much, much better. We've got things like a vaccine that's out by a number of different companies. So that's going to help fight that coronavirus. And hopefully we can get it under control and go back to a lifestyle that's at least close to being normal again, and be able to enjoy each other, not just virtually like we do every week here on our Zoomcast, but to be able to also do it in person. And speaking of in person, let's just talk about the people that are involved with our Zoomcast that we do here on Internet Advisor, starting with the original Internet Advisor. That'd be Gary Baker, coming to us from the Shared Adventures Studios in sunny Southeast Florida. How you doing, Gary?
Hey, Cal. Hey, Ed. Happy New Year. Oh, my gosh. Thank it's good riddance to 2020, but looking forward to a healthy and happy new year for all of us in 2021.
You know, I don't remember much past last February 27th or 28th. Wasn't last year a leap year? I think so. So I wish we could have leaped over the whole damn thing.
And leaping over to the other box here on our Zoomcast would be our resident tech expert, man who's been around probably almost as long as Gary, because Gary brought him on board to the Internet Advisor, and that's Mr. Ed Rudel. How you doing, Ed?
I'm doing great, Cal. Thank you, and Happy New Year to all. And yeah, may this year be better and bring all your dreams and wishes come true. How about that?
Wow, that sounds like something that you'd hear as you came into the doors of Disney World, and it's really beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no, I wish I could have skipped over that whole year. It's bad. But you know what? Looking back, Cal, I was looking at one of your this week in history. Yeah. No, this week in history, basically. Remember, we had the Y2K. That was 20 years ago, right?
Oh, that was just such an awesome good time for technology.
That was 20 years ago. It's so hard to believe.
And it was crazy because I remember it clearly. Everybody, at least, and you guys probably were in the same boat as I was. Everyone was on call that day. Everyone had to be prepared that day for months and months and months and months. We would prepare. This is what we're going to do in case this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. We had all these contingency plans. We had backups. Ideas of what to do. Things to be able to cover every possible scenario. And absolutely nothing happened.
Well, that's because they did all that prep work beforehand, right? So they were fixing all that code and getting rid of all that COBOL and, stuff like that. But no, I mean, and then of course the chips wouldn't know. So we all had to worry about our electric meters, right? I remember my mom going off on that. Oh, electric meters are going to stop working. No, they're just going to stop counting.
There was so much misinformation. It was so funny. They split Foster and I up that night. And I remember going out, celebrating quickly with a few friends for dinner, saying Happy New Year. And then I had to come to the studio to work with Paul W. and Paul W. Smith and I, who does the morning show during the week on WJR. Foster had taken another shift with somebody else. And so I was split up. And so Paul and I were going to do the kind of the next shift. So it was about 2 to 6 in the morning. And I said, Paul, do we have material? And he goes, well, we're going to report on the problems with Y2K. And I went, there's not going to be any problems. He goes, I'll be some problems. There were no problems. We scrambled. Every 10 minutes, it was like, okay, go to the break. Okay, all right, we got out of that one. That seemed reasonable. And Paul kept going, nobody's listening to us anyway. They're either still celebrating or they're asleep. What do? We ended up having such a great time because we had 3-4 minutes to plan the next 10, right? What are we going to talk about that anybody's going to care about? And it's just so funny. The the Spartans were in one of the bowl games, and it was down in Florida, and I can't remember if it was the Citrus or the Outback Bowl, but we went, and Paul W. has this great idea. Let's call the governor. Oh, 4:30 in the morning. He hardly sleeps. He's always working. Well, we had him outside his hotel room. Michelle and the triplets were still asleep, and he was talking to us on the phone outside the hotel room here in Florida. And I think it was in Orlando, so that must have been is the Outback Bowl is in Orlando, right? Or is it the Citrus Bowl? No, I forget. But anyway.
I'd be lucky if I could tell you where the cereal bowl is in my house. So I'm not a big football guy, but I know it's somewhere down there where it's warm.
That was funny. So that was my Y2K story.
Well, I remember that Y2K so much. This was back when you had much larger cell phones or either flip phones. I can't remember which one it was because it's been so long. And I was hauling all this equipment along with a laptop computer that was like about 2.5 inches thick. And I'm all ready and I'm prepped for that. And I never had to take it out the bag. And the fun part that I had during that entire time was a lot of this was all predicated on computers not being able to deal with the date, with the exception of one computer system. And that was my Mac. My Mac could do it without any problems. There was no patches to put on it, nothing to do, just run it and enjoy what was going on. But yeah, once again, an anticlimactic situation, nothing happened. Absolutely nothing.
Right. And and it was so boring that night. YouTube wasn't even around back then.
No. So you just kind of
what do you do? It's not like you could play a game on your phone or anything like that, like most people do. It's amazing how many people are addicted to their smart devices now, right? And, they just cannot get it out of their hands. If they're not doing email, they're playing a quick little game, or they're watching a video, or they're streaming some movie. So technology sure has changed in the last 20 years. Let me put it that way.
Well, we had always thought that the tablets, right, the iPad was going to replace the computer. We'll have to talk about that. Is that going to happen this next decade? When's that going to happen, right?
Well, we'll figure it out one way or the other, but we'll take a quick break and go off and replenish our cups of coffee, and we'll be back in a few minutes to talk about that and whatever else is going to happen in the future. So stay tuned for the Internet Advisor. Welcome back to the Internet Advisor. We're here again with Ed Rudel and Gary Baker. And this year, of course, starts off 2021, and we always start our first year with our tech predictions, and we'll be talking more about those things in the coming future. Matter of fact, I've been doing a long-term project that I'm going to be doing all year because I want to see how viable this really is. A lot of times, and I don't know if this happens in the Windows environment. I think it does as well. But a new operating system comes out and they'll have specs of this is what you need to be able to do this operating system on this particular computer. And if you don't have all those specs, well, then your computer can only go so far with that particular operating system. And then you have to stop and either say, I'm not going to do any more than this computer is capable of doing with this OS, or I'm going to go out and buy a new one so I can go further.
No, I think Mac only does. Apple does that. I don't think Intel or any of the other companies do that. I mean, I've installed Windows 7 on computers that were actually meant for run Windows 3.1.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's incredible. I'm glad to hear that. So Apple kind of comes out and says, hey, this is what you got to have to do it. If you don't have this, you have to buy a new Apple computer. Some people call it planned obsolescence. I think it's just Apple making sure that whatever they have to support, they can support because they know that it's going to do what it's going to do. Well, there's a guy out there that's got a website. He's called, ironically, DOS Dude. And his website is DOSDude1.com. And what he does, he takes a look at these new operating systems and he looks at the old hardware and he finds out ways of patching the operating system so it'll still allow you to upgrade your computer to that new OS. And so I've been using that with some older computers that I acquired so far. I've done 2. Actually, I tried to do 3, but one of them had an old AMD video card in it, which was not compatible with these new operating systems. So everything that should be blue all comes out as green or orange or something like that. It just looks really nasty. But I've been doing this, and he charges nothing. He just only looks for a free will donation. As far as I can see, everything he's doing is within licensing parameters, so there's no conflict or anything like that. And he's been doing it for some years now, and it's been working really well. OSX Daily has been giving him good compliments and stuff like that. So it's something to take a look at if you want to try and save some money on possibly, let's say you're not ready for a new computer yet, but you want to be able to upgrade it and continue on. It's a possibility that you can look into, and I'm going to be putting more information about it on our website so that if folks want to take advantage of it and do it. Of course, do your own due diligence. Make sure you have software, you have your computer backed up first. Make sure you have software that's compatible with the patches and stuff like that. And
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
So I got a quick question, and it's about, so does the DOS dude basically trick the OS that's trying to be installed to get installed, and will future patches come directly from Apple, or are you relying upon DOS dude using his special packages to install any security updates?
It's a combination of the two. What'll happen is after you install his patches to the OS, what he does, he takes the OS version that you want. Let's say you want to get Mojave. So he takes Mojave, and then he patches all the things in it that are necessary to be fixed in order for it to be fully operational on that machine. Then he loads it onto the machine. Once it's loaded to the machine, when the machine talks to Apple, Apple sees it as a legitimate processing system and says, hey, if you want to update this, go ahead and pull those updates
so he just
down.
overcomes the hurdles that prohibit you from installing it to begin with. Okay, and then after that, it gets its normal patches. Well, that's good. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, and if there's something in those normal patches that aren't going to be compatible with that machine, he tries to write new patches to fix those, and you get updates from him as well. So you actually end up getting software updates from two locations, one from Apple itself and one from him as well. And all he asks for is a nice free will donation. So that's a good way of being able to do it. So that keeps it going. So that's not too bad. The other thing that I noticed in the news this week, and this is, I think, is going to get really interesting, is that Amazon just bought a company called Wonderly, I believe is the name of it. And Wonderly is a podcasting service. And it looks like Amazon wants to get into, some high-level competition along with Apple and a number of other podcasting services out there. At one time, Wonderly was actually being courted by Apple because they were thinking about acquiring them as well. So I have a feeling that that's going to become a more aggressive platform for people to be able to perform on in the near future. Well, if we want to predict for 2021, I think it's going to definitely be something that's going to be a battleground where it's going to be like, oh, are you going to be on? Because most commercials you hear nowadays, it says it'll be on Apple iTunes for a podcast, and you hear that a lot, but you don't really hear anybody else. You might hear Spotify or something like that. But I think with Amazon being a player in there, two things are going to be happening. Number one, it's going to be more choices out there, of course, because Gary always says competition is good. And then the other thing is for developers and for people who are putting podcasts out there, it's going to give them another opportunity for a revenue stream to be able to bring in more money for themselves as well. So I think that's going to be instrumental in the very near future.
We've predicted that more and more video is going to show up in our lives online. And that's been a prediction for a number of years now. I think it's a prediction for next year too. And the point is that the trend is going to just keep continuing. We're all going to be doing a lot more video and watching a lot more video online.
Do you think the video will be the amount of more video online is going to be especially for mobile devices? Do you think the video online is going to be more contingent on the execution of 5G?
Oh, absolutely. Because now it'll be reasonable to get, even when you start to do some of the video that you'll see on TikTok, for instance, where you're bringing in a number of different pieces of multimedia where they'll take and overlay different things on top of the actual video, different images. you're going to be able to do it more reasonably with a faster connection because some of those files are huge, right?
Right. And the other thing, I agree with that, with Gary's statement about the mobile devices. And I think you're going to see a lot of these things trimmed down, like those 3-minute videos that you get on TikTok, is about the attention span of most people. They want to do it in between one thing and another, right? And I'll watch a quick TikTok and then I'll burn up 3 minutes before I, have to hit my next meeting or do that next phone call. And I think that's what Amazon's going after that movie, because there was that one startup company that started last year that actually tanked, and they were going to be doing videos that were no more than, was it 17 minutes? Well, that I can't remember even the name.
Was it QB?
Maybe that was it. It just did not take off.
Right.
We're also seeing though the increase in YouTube videos, which are 20, 25 minutes sometimes, because people, there's how to. George Carlin does a great routine on YouTube about self-help. He says it's either help or it's self-help, and if it's self-help, you don't need anybody. He does it much better than I do. But the point is, there's a lot of that activity going to YouTube.
Speaking of TikTok, I have a question for you guys. Do you really, do either of you use TikTok much? I have not been able to fully embrace it. It looks more like something for the younger generation and more of a type of entertainment media. What are your viewpoints on TikTok?
Oh, I think it's entertainment for sure. But I learned some things. So I follow a couple people. Do you know about the back tap on the iPhone?
Please.
And how to set it up?
Illustrate.
But you could go to, and you need to go to TikTok and see. I follow this one guy who does, every other day or so, he's got a new
iPhone tip.
Yeah, and it's mostly iPhone tips. But I can't believe all the different things. So you go to setting, you go to availability, you go down to back tap, click that. It's either 1, 2 taps or 3. I set it up for 2 taps to take a photo or 3 taps to do a screenshot. And it's just easy because it's easy for me to use my finger on the back tap, right? Where otherwise I got to use 2 hands sometimes, or I can't get my other finger around to hit the take the photo button. So anyway, I find TikTok truly amusing, and then sometimes educational.
Well, it's always content, right? It's what you're interested in. You can do the comedy or you can do the self-helps. I love that.
Yep.
No, I haven't even touched TikTok to end that. But hey, you're listening to the Internet Advisor, and we're going to take a short break. And when we get back, you're going to hear some of our 2021 and 2022. We'll be back.
The Internet Advisor comes to you every week here on this medium. And if you're watching the Zoomcast, you already know that you can go to internetadvisor.net and find it there. We also do our podcast there as well, which you can pull off SoundCloud or listen to at that particular site. And in addition to that, if you have a question on technology, anything that comes to mind, please feel free to go to internetadvisor.net, click on the contact button, and then once you click on that button, please submit all the information you possibly can on your technology question. Click and submit it, and we'll get it, read it, and we'll send you back an answer. And if you're lucky, we'll talk about it right here on this Zoomcast. So go to internetadvisor.net, and you can do all that information right there. With 2021 in gear and engaged, and we're flowing down that path, looking uphill for a much brighter and better year. We have some predictions coming up for that year. And Ed, I believe you said that you had something that you wanted to talk about in particular for a prediction for this year. Please illustrate us.
Well, I brought it up a little while ago, and I'm surprised I haven't seen it. So I'm hoping that we're going to hear some tidbits from our laptop manufacturers about wireless charging on laptops. So we have that capability on phones. Hell, I think we even have some cars that charge wirelessly, but it's not very efficient. But I mean, we're running into this convergence right now. And we talked about it earlier in the show about why didn't everything go to tablets? Well, you got the people with iPads, sure, but then some people can use it as a complete replacement device. And sure, those do some wireless charging, but what about a laptop? And I'd really like to see, and I think we'll hear some manufacturers. Lenovo will probably be one of the first. I would think Samsung, who also, and you know, what's it? Pegasus, not Pegasus, Asus.
Asus,
Before
yeah,
Dell or
actually.
HP or anyone else could would come up with that. So I'm really thinking we'll start hearing about wireless charging on the devices, because most devices now, laptops, are included with USB-C, and which is a nice little interface. But and Cal, we talked about this before. Wireless C isn't the best type of physical connector. There are 24 individual pins that have to make contact in there. It provides, I think, 5 different voltages, 5, 9, 12, 16, and 19, or something along those lines, and all these different communication channels. So we'll see where it goes. But wireless charging laptops is my prediction for next year.
It is such an amazing potpourri of connections within USB-C. And I always hate it when they try to make one connection that does everything, because it ends up being one connection that does some things okay, and the rest of them is, it's kind of iffy here and there, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So you got a point there. But wireless charging, oh man, wouldn't that be great just to be able to walk into the house with your laptop at the end of the day, laying it down onto a pad and walking away from it. And then later on, when you're getting ready to leave, you just pick it up, put it in your bag, walk out the door, and you know that it's fully charged. Oh yeah, that sounds like
and tetherless. So I mean, for my home workspace, which for me is on the dining room table, that I'd have a pad there.
I thought it was,
and to just set it right there, and I would never have to worry about the clunky. Oh, you thought it was the Ed shed? Well, yeah, this is my secondary location.
Yeah. I was just going to say, we broadcast Ed from the shed, and I do it remote from the boat. And, what's another trend? Another trend might be we're back in the studio.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
A lot of other people will be having to make a decision. Are we going to continue to work remotely, or do we have to go into the office a few days a week?
Well, it may not be just the individuals. It would be a lot of them are going to say, hey, but there's a lot of companies that are, you know what, we could really save a lot of money on real estate and heating. And, real estate companies are going to be hurting, especially for the industrial. And a lot of companies have some tough decisions to make in the year to come about how many of our professionals can still work remote.
Yep.
Right.
And can you send them home for 6, 8, 10 months, or is this going to be a 6, 8, 10 year thing where we actually don't have a relationship with people that we normally would in the office, and we do that all on Zoom or another communication device?
Yeah, collaboration with other individuals and brainstorming is key to creativity in any environment, and I think we've lost a lot of that.
There is,
and the spot, you have to have that spontaneity and the chance encounters, and you get that in an office environment, which you do not get so much in a home environment where you're in a cave or in a shed.
Yeah, it's funny because I work in an almost totally remote company, IPC, and Fin Results is actually mostly remote as well. I don't know if it's the people, and there's only a certain group of people that know how to do this, but I don't think we lose anything. There are people that work for me I have never met, and I think we do a great job of using Zoom and being creative. What I continue to worry about is, are they working too much, right? Well, they can work a little bit more, maybe because they don't commute anywhere. But what I'm worried about is, are they working all the time? Can they separate workspace at home from, the rest of the family and their playtime environment? And
absolutely. So absolutely. So we had Ed's laptop charging and wireless laptop. We had Gary's, about working remote for the predictions. Cal, what's yours?
Well, I've been looking at this a lot, and I've got a couple of friends so far that have started to embrace solar technology. And I see a lot of that coming in the new year as well. Folks are beginning to to see that as a potential alternative power source. But in addition to that, the prices for solar technology have been going down. Are they really, really cheap yet? No, not yet. But they have been going down significantly to a point where I actually see what I call the common man starting to invest money into it. And along with that solar technology is going to be more of an intermingling of how your house systems, things like HomeKit and Amazon Alexa and that sort of thing, are going to tie into that, so that you'll be able to not only be able to control your temperature and how your computer works and your music and stuff like that, but also your energy usage, to have a tighter interaction with it, and actually to be in situations where you could do things like Gary's in Florida, but he has a house up in Michigan, and he can go over to Alexa and say, "Oh, Alexa, what is my power consumption going on in my house right now?" And Alexa would give him the information back, and then he could say, Alexa's, please switch the gas heating situation off, and let's run completely on solar heating for the next 24 hours. And he can just switch back and forth, be able to balance those types of mediums and ways to be able to keep his house warm, and take advantage of the savings that goes along with it. I see a lot of interaction with that type of medium coming on in the coming year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terry White he's down in Georgia now. That's where he lives. And he's become a big solar fan. He had solar panels put on his house. And he also is a Tesla fan. So he also has a Tesla. Matter of fact, him and his wife both have Tesla vehicles as well. And they've got part of their charging tied into the solar panels on the house as well. So I can see it's coming on. If people that I know that are within reach are doing this sort of thing, I can see in the coming next 2 or 3 years, more and more people will have solar as an alternative. I can see Ed doing it to his shed, so they can be able to.
Well, the more people that do it, the lower the cost will be, right? And I've heard, Cal, correct me, didn't solar energy reach a milestone where the consumer-based products are now reaching 25% efficiency? I read something.
It's getting a lot closer. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's something in that neighborhood. And yeah, it's definitely starting to get in that to its affordability rate is coming closer and closer with every year. So that's really, really cool. And I'm excited about that, because I'm thinking maybe I could put a solar panel on the shed in my backyard and be able to charge my tractor batteries inside or something like that. So I think that's going to work out really well.
Yeah, and I have solar panels on the boat. I look around and I see a lot of solar panels on boats.
Yeah, so it's got to be a great way to go. Now, your engines on your boat aren't electric, though. Is that correct, Gary?
No, they're not electric. They're diesel.
Hey, just an FYI.
But you don't have to run the diesel engines to have electricity, though. That's the nice thing about having the solar panels. Or the generator. Right. Thank you for that clarification.
I don't have to run the generator as much. Yep.
The other thing that I noticed this week that I thought was really, really interesting and kind of handy is that they have now integrated into Siri on the Apple devices. You can, if you have issues, you're being challenged and life has got so rough for you, and you're contemplating suicide, you can say, "Hey, Siri, help me with suicide prevention." And automatically Siri will come back and say, "Would you like me to call a number and get you in contact with someone?" And you can say yes, and it'll immediately call the suicide prevention hotline for you. So that's one less thing that you'll have to worry about if you ever got into that type of situation. You don't have to say, "What is the phone number?" That sort of thing. Just say, "Siri, I need suicide help." And Siri will be able to get in contact with the appropriate institution in your area and help you out in that particular thing. So it's a nice tip to be able to know and keep in mind.
It's really nice, but it's kind of really depressing, but it's nice to know.
It's a lifeline. It's just a lifeline, just something so folks can know that out there. You can share it with someone else in case you know someone who might be in a tough situation. And with that in mind, we'll come back and talk about more positive things when we return on the Internet Advisor. Happy New Year. Once again, we're back here on the Internet Advisor. Hey, gotta have some champagne because it is a new year. But what's more important, it's a new year because we're going to continue with our never-ending continuing saga of being covered all over the great state of Michigan by the one man that we look for every week to cover us on Michigan technology. That would be Mike Brennan with MI Tech News. Happy New Year, Mike.
Thanks, Cal. Happy New Year's to all our viewers, listeners, and readers, and everybody else out there.
And we're looking for a great new year in 2021. And Mike's sidekick, and also the man who always checks out MI Tech News, Gary Baker.
Well, I am so impressed that you got dressed up for our video show here, Mike.
Well,
Thank
I think it should be a dress code on the show, you know. So.
Hey, I put a shirt on.
Oh, good, yeah.
So anyway, hey, this was a prediction show, Mike, and an easy prediction for us to make is that Michigan residents that are in rural areas are going to have better broadband access for the next decade.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly that's going to be helped a lot by the fact that the FCC has given the state, well over a period of 10 years, $363 million to do just that. In fact, there was something like 13 projects that was selected. It was a bidding process. But of the 83 counties, 81 of them will be impacted by this particular funding. And certainly what we've discovered and as we're doing now, we're not in studio, right? Well, that's just, I think, the new normal. It's going to have such a tremendous impact on everything. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the cities with all that office space that people now do not want to go into those offices. But certainly in the broadband area for the rural areas, gosh, you can live anywhere you want, do your stuff if you are one of those workers that can do things virtually. Now, of course, all workers can't do that, but many can.
Well, a guy that I work with, our CEO of Fin Results, a little fintech company that serves small and medium-sized banks, he said, I have this wonderful house up in the middle of the UP of Michigan. I'm going to go up there for the summer, and I can work remotely up there because right now I can't see some of our clients anyway. I might as well work remotely, and I can work remotely anywhere. I might as well work remotely from the UP of Michigan.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? He had just a hard time living up there for even three months during the summer because he had access, didn't have access, had access, didn't have access, dropping, and nobody could figure out how to help him. He went to AT&T. He was looking at satellite, and he just gave it all up, and he's back down here in Florida now. Of course, he doesn't want to be there in the winter if he can help it anyway. But actually, he said he would if he could get some of that technology to work. If it now works, if we now put more money into it because of what the FCC has done, it's going to be easier and easier for our people to spread out across the great state of Michigan. And the other thing that's an enabler of that is if people put content up, and Lawrence Tech is now going to go virtual with their STEM program, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is aimed at part of what they do with the Marburger, I get it right this time, Marburger STEM Center is a lot of it is they're teaching teachers who are in science, technology, engineering, math, and arts. In the case of LTU is architecture. So they're teaching teachers how to teach that to their students, and at the same time, they're having this virtual setting for K through 12 students who want to get plugged into STEM, and it's all done virtually. It's free too. It can't be free. And so, yeah, I mean, it's one of those big adjustments that all these colleges are making.
It's and sometimes what that does is it allows people to stay home and locate their home anywhere in the state of Michigan. Yep. It's beautiful. They can enjoy the beauty of being, outdoors in Michigan and still be connected to their classroom, to their work. But we need that broadband access.
And certainly,
Mike, thank you very much for.
One of my goals is to be able to go to Key West and set up on a bar stool down there and do all my broadcasts from the bar stool in Key West during the winter and become a snowbird. So can do it now, right?
So, I think I should locate in Key West, and then I don't have to, and if I can do everything remotely, put the boat anywhere I want.
You can, yes. Key West, one of my favorite places. I've never had a bad time in Key West. So
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you very much for again being our guest here. You're kind of a regular guest on the Internet Advisor. Cal, we we welcome Mike for a whole nother year, don't we? And
I think
you
you're
gotta
muted.
turn on your mic.
Yes, I know. It's even better if I turn the mic on.
yes,
You'll
yes.
enjoy it
It's
much
hard to
better.
read lips, So
The plan is to have Mike here every week like we do here on the Internet Advisor, giving us the best information on technology going on in and around the great state of Michigan. Mike Brennan is going to be our source for that. And Mike, please feel free to hang around for the rest of the show.
Okay.
We'll continue to talk and talk a little bit more about our predictions for this coming year. I think Ed did you have one other prediction, Ed? Or do we want to talk about?
No, I didn't have any more predictions, but I wanted to talk a little
Mike,
bit about Microsoft is coming up with
Yes.
its Windows 10X operating system in July.
10X.
10X. So what basically Microsoft is rewriting the Windows graphical user interface to work on mobile devices. Unlike what was the other Windows 10 or Windows 8 interface?
Windows Mobile.
Well, that too. That was also bombed. But what this one is for, it's going to be for taking advantage of dual screen phones, which are hopefully will be releasing in the near future. And it's an alternative to the Google or Android operating system, right? And it's going to have what's known as what's that standby mode? A new called modern standby. So when you shut the lid in your laptop, on most laptops, the standby mode, it just goes completely to sleep and it goes into a low power mode. Well,
Correct.
what they want to do with the new Windows 10X is make the standby mode operate more like mobile phones, so you can still receive notifications, still have internet access and stuff like that. So Microsoft is rewriting the Windows 10X operating system to take advantage of the dual screens and have a new standby mode. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that as the pilot version comes out in the near future.
Speaking of dual screens and that sort of thing, I did notice on a Mac Rumors article this week that that Apple is doing some testing with some iPhone prototypes using the foldable screen or having two screens on them as well. And they're having some intensive testing done on it by Foxconn to make sure that it can stand up to the rigorous opening and closing that goes along with it. When Samsung originally came out with their foldable phone, after a certain amount of time, you would actually see where the screen would start to crack where the hinge was for the foldability on it. Well, they've improved that since then, and Apple has actually ordered a bunch of those screens, and they're testing them now to see if they're going to be viable for what they want to do with the iPhone. So that's in testing at this particular time. So perhaps maybe even that dual screen software might even emulate on an iPhone as well that Ed was talking about in addition to that. The other thing that I had noticed, and Mike had talked earlier this week about being able to get a new iMac for himself, is that CNET reported on how to go about shopping for an appropriate Windows machine that has the same type of power that a MacBook Pro would have. So with that in mind, you might want to take a look at that article, and we'll have a link for that on our website as well. Mike Brennan, thanks a lot for being with us again this week. We'll keep you all this year. Happy New Year as well. Welcome back, of course, to Gary Baker, the original Internet Advisor. Happy New Year to you, sir. And then, of course...
Thank you, Cal. Thank you all.
Okay, and of course, my sidekick, Ed Rudel, the man who's got all the technology answers. Happy New Year to you, sir.
That would be Ed in the Shed, right? So.
Ed in the Shed, the legendary Ed in the Shed. And of course, myself, Cal Carson here with the Internet Advisor. Thanks so much for being with us, folks. And tune in for us next week here on the Internet Advisor.